The 7 days passed like a storm approaching slowly across an ocean. When humanity's answer came, it was simple and direct. No. Ambassador Yoon-ji Choi had delivered the message personally to the Galactic Council. She stood before the assembly with her back straight and her voice calm. Humanity will not abandon our colonies. We will not retreat from systems we have legally claimed and settled. If you wish to remove us, you will have to try. Commander Wraith felt his blood burn with anger and excitement. Finally, the humans had shown their true nature. Now the galaxy would see what happened to species that refused to follow the rules. So be it, Wraith declared. The Zilani Confederation will restore order to these systems. The attack on Kepler 442b was planned to be quick and overwhelming. The mining colony had only 12,000 humans living on its surface. Intelligence reports showed no military bases, no defensive platforms, and no fleet protection. It would be an easy victory that would show other human colonies what happened to those who defied the galactic community. Wraith, Quota's fleet approached the system with confidence. 30 warships moved in perfect formation, their weapons charged and ready. The Zilani had fought many battles against pirates and rebels. They knew how to break a planet's resistance quickly. All ships prepare for orbital bombardment, Wraith commanded from his flagship. Target their communication arrays first, then their power plants. We'll accept their surrender within the hour. On Kepler 442b's surface, Sergeant Minho Young was eating breakfast when the alarm started screaming. He had been a miner for 8 years before joining the colony's security force. He knew every tunnel, every building, and every piece of equipment on the planet. Incoming fleet, announced the communication system. All personnel to emergency stations. Minho grabbed his rifle and ran toward the command center. Around him, other miners were doing the same thing. But something felt different about their movements. They weren't panicking like civilians under attack. They moved like soldiers who had been waiting for this moment. In the command bunker, Colony Administrator Sungmin Park was activating systems that most colonists didn't know existed. Hidden screens came online, showing defensive positions that looked like mining equipment. Secret weapon caches opened in tunnels that appeared to be for mineral extraction. Phase 1 protocols are active, Sungmin announced. All units, you know what to do. Minho reached his assigned position and looked up at the alien fleet approaching overhead. They were coming in low and slow, confident that nothing could threaten them. They had no idea that every mining charge on the planet had been designed to work as an orbital missile. Fire when ready, came the order. The first surprise came when mining explosives launched from what looked like ore processing facilities. Wraith watched in confusion as hundreds of projectiles streaked up from the planet's surface. They were too small to damage warships, moving too slowly to be proper missiles. Then they exploded. The mining charges had been modified with human engineering. Instead of simple explosions, they created expanding clouds of metallic debris that tore through shields and armor. 3 Zilani ships vanished in balls of fire before Wraith understood what was happening. Impossible, he breathed. Those were mining tools. On the surface, Minho was controlling a massive excavation mech that had suddenly sprouted weapon systems. The machine that normally dug tunnels was now firing concentrated mining lasers at the alien ships. Around him, other miners were doing the same thing. The atmospheric processors that cleaned the colony's air had become chemical weapon dispensers. They released clouds of corrosive gas that ate through alien ship hulls like acid through paper. The power plants that ran the colony were overloading in controlled bursts, creating electromagnetic pulses that fried alien electronics. Wraith tried to rally his fleet, but the humans kept surprising him. Every piece of civilian equipment on the planet seemed to have a hidden military purpose. Cargo haulers became missile launchers. Communication towers became targeting systems. Even the greenhouses were releasing clouds of spores that interfered with alien sensors. All ships pull back to safe distance, Wraith ordered. His fleet was taking terrible losses and they hadn't even landed troops yet. But the humans weren't done. As the alien ships retreated, the planet's real defenses came online. Weapons that had been disguised as mining installations revealed themselves. The colony's central mountain opened like a flower, exposing a massive orbital cannon that had been built inside a hollow peak. The cannon fired once. Wraith's flagship, a kilometer-long battle cruiser that had won dozens of battles, split in half and exploded. On Earth, Admiral Su Jin Han received the first reports of the battle while she was having her morning coffee. She read the messages with no surprise, only satisfaction. The Kepler 442b colony had performed exactly as trained. All fleets, activate condition red, she ordered. Phase 2 protocols are now in effect. Across human space, military bases that had been hidden for decades suddenly came alive. Ships that had been disguised as cargo haulers revealed weapon systems that shouldn't have existed. Space stations that claimed to be research facilities opened launch bays filled with fighters. Dr. Tae-hyun was one of the people who had made this possible. For 20 years, he had been studying captured alien technology in a secret laboratory beneath Seoul. Every piece of wreckage, every disabled probe, every alien device that had accidentally fallen into human hands had been taken apart and understood. Admiral, Tae-hyun reported, all reverse-engineered systems are operational. We've been ready for this day for a very long time. The human ships that responded to the attack on Kepler 442b looked primitive from the outside. They had metal hulls instead of energy fields, kinetic weapons instead of plasma cannons, and chemical rockets instead of gravity drives. But appearances were deceiving. When Commander Wraith's surviving ships tried to retreat from the system, they discovered that the primitive human vessels were faster than anything in the Zilani fleet. The basic human weapons could punch through alien shields like they weren't there. The slow human ships could maneuver in ways that violated known physics. Captain Jinsu Kim commanded the human destroyer Soul's Hammer as it chased down fleeing Zilani ships. His weapons officer was targeting alien engines with precision that should have been impossible. "How are we hitting them so accurately?" the young officer asked. "We've been studying their ships for decades," Jinsu replied. "We know exactly where their weak points are." The truth was even more shocking than that. Humanity had been preparing for this war since the first day they met other alien species. Every trade mission had been a scouting expedition. Every cultural exchange had been intelligence gathering. Every peaceful contact had been a chance to learn about potential enemies. The Zilani fleet that had confidently attacked Kepler 442b was destroyed completely. Of the 30 ships that entered the system, only 5 escaped to carry word of their defeat back to Zilani space. Commander Wraith was not among the survivors. The news of the massacre spread through the galactic communication networks like wildfire. The Zilani Confederation had sent their best fleet against a mining colony and been crushed. The humans hadn't just defended themselves, they had utterly destroyed their attackers. On Nexus Prime, Elder Vextar received the reports with a heavy heart. He had hoped the humans would show mercy, would demonstrate restraint even when attacked. Instead, they had shown exactly what his ancestors had warned about. The humans killed them all, whispered Counselor Yila of the Crimson Fleet. A mining colony destroyed an entire battle fleet. Not destroyed, Vextar corrected sadly. Revealed. The colony was never just a mining operation. None of the human settlements are what they appear to be. We have been watching the wrong things. For centuries. The younger species representatives sat in stunned silence. Their confident alliance suddenly seemed fragile and foolish. If one human mining colony could destroy 30 warships, what could their real military do? But it was too late to change course now. The attack had been launched, blood had been spilled, and the humans had responded with overwhelming force. The war that would reshape the galaxy had truly begun. In the days that followed, intelligence reports flooded in from across known space. Human, civilian ships were moving with military precision. Human research stations were revealed to be fortress installations. Human trade routes were actually strategic military supply lines. The galaxy was learning a terrible truth. Humanity had never been weak. They had simply been pretending to be weak, while they prepared for the day when someone would be foolish enough to challenge them. That day had come, and the consequences were only beginning. News of the Kepler 442b massacre spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. In alien capitals, emergency councils met behind closed doors. In human space, something much more frightening was happening. Humanity was waking up. On the industrial world of New Sol, Yejinan walked through what everyone believed was a civilian manufacturing plant. For 12 years, she had managed the production of mining equipment, construction tools, and agricultural machinery. Today, she was revealing what those machines really were. Activate military protocols, she announced to her workforce. The factory floor transformed. Assembly lines that had been building tractors suddenly started producing armored vehicles. Workers who had been making farming equipment began crafting weapons that could punch through alien ship hulls. The civilian plant revealed itself as one of the most advanced weapons facilities in the galaxy. "How long have we been preparing for this?" asked her assistant Junho, as he watched peaceful machinery become instruments of war. "Since the day we first met the aliens," Yejin replied. "Every human colony has been ready for this moment." Across human space, the same transformation was happening. Mining colonies revealed themselves as fortress worlds. Trade stations became military bases. Research facilities opened hidden weapon laboratories. Humanity had spent centuries building what looked like peaceful settlements, while actually creating the largest military network the galaxy had ever seen. Colonel Dong Hyun Kang stood on the bridge of the assault carrier New Incheon as it approached its target. 3 days after Kepler 442b, humanity was striking back. His mission was simple: hit 3 Zilani worlds simultaneously and show the galaxy what happened to species that attacked humans. "Colonel," reported his intelligence officer, "the Zilani have no idea we're coming. Their early warning systems are designed to detect large fleets, not single ships." Dong Hyun smiled grimly. The aliens still didn't understand human warfare. They thought in terms of massive battles between huge fleets. Humans thought in terms of surgical strikes that destroyed enemy ability to fight back. The new Incheon looked like a single heavy cruiser to alien sensors. In reality, it was a carrier filled with hundreds of smaller ships that could scatter across an entire star system and attack dozens of targets at once. While the aliens prepared for one big battle, the humans were fighting 1,000 small ones. On the Catherian homeworld, Elder Vextar was opening archives that hadn't been accessed in millennia. Younger members of the Elder Council watched as ancient holographic records materialized in the air above them. "These are the true records of humanity's first contact with our species," Vextar explained. "Not the sanitized versions in our public histories. The holograms showed primitive humans from 10,000 years ago. They wore animal skins and carried stone tools, but their eyes held an intelligence that made the alien observers uncomfortable. Even at their most primitive, humans displayed a capacity for strategic thinking that frightened advanced civilizations. They were living in caves," said Counselor Thexon. "How could such primitives threaten spacefaring species?" "Watch," Vextar commanded. The ancient records showed human tribes facing alien contact teams. Instead of worshipping the advanced visitors or running in terror, the humans began asking questions. They wanted to know how the ships flew, how the weapons worked, and why the aliens had come. Within days, they were setting traps for alien scouts and capturing technology. "They learned from everything," Vextar narrated. "Every contact taught them something new. Every interaction made them stronger. Our ancestors realized that humans didn't just adapt to new situations. They improved them." The records showed the aftermath of those early contacts. Human tribes that had been fighting each other with sticks and stones suddenly unified against the alien threat. They developed new tactics, new weapons, and new ways of thinking that turned their weaknesses into strengths. "This is why we named them the Ender species," Vextar revealed. "Not because they destroyed their enemies, but because they ended conflicts so completely that those enemies never posed a threat again." On the Zilani world of Kresh Prime, the population was celebrating their fleet's attack on the human mining colony. The official news reports claimed a great victory, with minimal Zilani losses. The truth was very different. Captain Boram Shin of Terran Intelligence crept through the shadows of Kresh Prime's capital city. She had been operating undercover in Zilani space for 3 years, posing as a traitor from a neutral species. Tonight, she was gathering intelligence that would change everything. Bo-Ram accessed the Zilani military command network through a hidden terminal in the government district. What she found in their databases made her blood run cold. The younger species weren't just forming an alliance against humanity, they were planning to unite the entire galaxy in a war of extermination. The Zilani files contained detailed plans for attacking every human world simultaneously. They had mapped human trade routes, identified civilian populations, and calculated exactly how many ships they would need to wipe humanity from the galaxy. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the list of species supporting the plan. Over 40 different civilizations had agreed to contribute ships and soldiers to the anti-human alliance. Even some of the elder races were quietly providing weapons and intelligence. Bo-Ram transmitted her findings back to Earth through channels that didn't officially exist. Within hours, the information was being analyzed by the highest levels of human command. The response was swift and decisive. Admiral J. Min Yoon received his orders while reviewing battle reports from the Zilani counterattack. The alien response to Kepler 442b had been exactly what human strategists expected: confused, poorly coordinated, and aimed at the wrong targets. All fleet commanders, Admiral Yoon transmitted, Operation Manifest Destiny is approved. Begin. Phase 3. Phase 3 was humanity's answer to the Galactic Alliance forming against them. If the aliens wanted to see human military might, they would get their wish. Hidden across hundreds of star systems, humanity's true fleet began to reveal itself. The shipyards in the Titan asteroid belt had been building warships for decades while pretending to mine ice. The research stations around Jupiter's moons were actually weapons development centers that had created technology beyond anything the aliens possessed. The agricultural domes on Mars were growing soldiers and training facilities that could produce elite troops faster than any alien world could raise armies. Colonel Dong Hyun Kang's simultaneous strike on 3 Zilani worlds was just the beginning. Across the galaxy, human forces that had been hidden for generations suddenly appeared and struck with coordinated precision. The attack on the Helix Empire's border worlds came from ships that materialized out of empty space. The assault on Crimson Fleet installations was carried out by vessels that had been disguised as asteroids for years. The strike on the Vegan Confederacy's trade routes was executed by merchant ships that suddenly revealed military-grade weapons and engines. But the most shocking revelation came from Earth itself. The planet that aliens knew as humanity's peaceful homeworld opened like a flower, revealing defensive installations that could have held off the entire galactic fleet. Orbital platforms that had been hidden behind holographic projections showed themselves. The moon, which aliens had assumed was a natural satellite, revealed itself as a fortress that had been under construction for centuries. On Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council met in emergency session as reports flooded in from across known space. Every species that had attacked humanity was reporting devastating losses. Human forces were appearing everywhere at once, striking with precision and power that seemed impossible. "How many ships do they have?" demanded Counselor Yilla. Elder Vextar studied the tactical displays with growing dread. The human attacks weren't random or desperate. They followed a pattern that showed planning and preparation on an unimaginable scale. "They don't have more ships than us," he realized. "They have better ships, better training, and better intelligence. They know exactly where to hit us and exactly when to do it." The terrifying truth was becoming clear. Humanity hadn't been hiding their military strength. They had been building it in plain sight while everyone watched the wrong things. Every peaceful contact, every trade agreement, every cultural exchange had been part of a vast intelligence-gathering operation that mapped the galaxy's weaknesses. Captain Bo-Ram Shin completed her mission on Kresh Prime by planting evidence that the Zilani government was planning to betray their own allies. By the time she slipped away from the planet, the Galactic Alliance was already beginning to fracture as species turned on each other in suspicion and fear. The war that was supposed to unite the galaxy against humanity was instead tearing the galaxy apart, and humanity had barely begun to show their true strength. As reports of human victories poured in from dozens of worlds, one message was being broadcast on every communication frequency: We did not seek this war, but we will finish it. The galaxy was learning what the elders had always known: never challenge humanity. Because once awakened, humans didn't just fight to win. They fought to make sure they would never have to fight the same war again. Admiral Jae-min Yoon stood before the United Earth Assembly in Geneva, looking out at representatives from every human colony world. The Great Hall was silent as he prepared to speak words that would change the galaxy forever. For 3 centuries, we have been patient, Admiral Yoon began, his voice carrying to every corner of the room. We have been restrained. We have honored the peace our ancestors built with alien species. We have ignored their insults, overlooked their aggression, and forgiven their mistakes. The assembled delegates listened with growing tension. They knew what was coming. That ends now. The vote was unanimous. Every human world, every colony, every space station voted for the same thing: total war. Not the limited conflict that had begun at Kepler 442b, but a complete mobilization of humanity's true capabilities. Within hours of the vote, the galaxy began to see what humanity really was. The 43 star systems that aliens believed represented all human territory were revealed as just the visible colonies. Hidden installations throughout the galaxy suddenly came online, revealing that humanity actually controlled over 400 systems through camouflaged bases and secret outposts. On the asteroid mining station Ceres Alpha, Commander Sunwoo Kim watched as his facility transformed. For 20 years, the station had appeared to be a simple mining operation extracting metals from space rocks. Now it revealed its true purpose as a massive weapons platform that could project power across dozens of star systems. All stations, report ready, announced his tactical officer. The network is fully operational. The network was humanity's greatest secret. For generations, they had been building hidden bases inside asteroids, hollow moons, and dead planets. Each installation looked like natural space debris to alien sensors, but together they formed a web of military power that stretched across the entire galaxy. General Haewon Bae led the planning for Operation Manifest Destiny from her command, centered deep beneath the Korean peninsula. The operation was ambitious even by human standards. Simultaneous attacks on the homeworlds of all 5 species that had declared war on humanity. General, reported her intelligence chief, we have complete mapping of all target systems. Enemy fleet positions, defensive installations, and civilian evacuation routes are all identified. Haewon studied the tactical displays floating in the air around her. Each target world was light years from the others, but the attacks would happen at exactly the same moment. The coordination required was staggering, but humanity had been preparing for this level of warfare for decades. Execute the operation, she ordered. The attacks began with silence. Across 1,000 light-years of space, human ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel and approached their targets without any communication or warning. They had learned from studying alien tactics that most species expected formal declarations of war and ceremonial challenges. Humans preferred to simply win. The Zilani homeworld was the first to fall. Captain Mi-young Park commanded the assault force that appeared in orbit without warning. Her ships looked like standard human cruisers to the Zilani defenders, but appearances were deceiving. Begin dismantlement protocol, she ordered. What happened next would be remembered across the galaxy for millennia. Instead of destroying the Zilani capital city, the human ships began taking it apart, piece by piece. Advanced tractor beams lifted buildings into orbit while precision weapons cut through support structures. The city was being surgically disassembled while its population watched in terror. Why aren't we killing them? Asked Captain Park's tactical officer. Because dead enemies can't spread fear, she replied. But enemies who watch their capital city disappear will tell everyone what happens when you challenge humanity. The Zilani government tried to surrender after the first hour, but humanity wasn't interested in surrender. They were interested in making a statement. By the end of the day, the Zilani capital had been completely relocated to orbit around the planet, still intact, but no longer touching the ground. The message was clear. Humanity could have destroyed everything, but they chose to demonstrate their complete control instead. The psychological impact was devastating. On the Helix Empire's homeworld, a different kind of demonstration was taking place. General Yun Su-han's forces weren't dismantling cities, they were improving them. Human engineering teams were upgrading alien infrastructure while military forces provided security. "We're not conquering them," General Han explained to his confused officers. "We're showing them what life could be like under human administration." The Helix population watched in amazement as their cities became cleaner, their transportation faster, and their technology more advanced. Human medics treated alien diseases that local doctors couldn't cure. Human teachers shared knowledge that revolutionized alien science. Within days, Helix civilians were asking their government why they had ever opposed humanity. On Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council was in chaos. Reports were flooding in from across the galaxy, and none of them made sense according to traditional military thinking. The humans weren't behaving like conquerors or destroyers. They were acting like gardeners who were reshaping the galaxy according to their own design. Elder Vextar stood before the panicked assembly and spoke the words that everyone feared to hear. "This is not a war. This is a transformation. Humanity is not trying to defeat us. They are trying to make us into something else." The ancient records that Vextar had been studying revealed the truth about humanity's nature. They didn't just win wars. They ended the reasons for fighting them. They transformed their enemies so completely that resistance became not just impossible but unthinkable. Dr. Hyunjin Lim was part of humanity's most powerful weapon, their cultural assimilation teams. She worked with alien refugees on captured worlds, helping them understand their new situation. But she wasn't using force or propaganda. She was simply demonstrating human ways of life. "Look at this." She showed a group of former Zalani military officers. "This is how humans organize supply chains." The aliens studied her data displays with growing amazement. Human logistics were more efficient than anything they had ever seen. Human organizational methods eliminated waste and corruption that they had accepted as normal. Human social structures provided opportunities that their old system had never offered. "Why would you share this knowledge with us?" asked one of the officers. "Because we want you to succeed," Dr. Lim replied simply. "Human civilization works better when everyone contributes their best efforts." That was humanity's most terrifying weapon. They made their former enemies genuinely want to be human, not through brainwashing or coercion, but through simple demonstration of superior systems and opportunities. Captain Siri Park, sister of Captain Hyun-sik Park, from New Busan, led the occupation forces on former Zalani colonies. Her job was to establish what would become the template for human expansion, complete integration rather than destruction. "We're not here to punish you," she announced to the gathered alien colonists. "We're here to offer you a choice. You can join human civilization and share in its benefits, or you can maintain your old ways and remain separate but peaceful." Most chose to join. The human system offered better education for their children, better medical care for their families, and better opportunities for advancement than their old government had ever provided. Within months, former enemy colonies were flying human flags and teaching human languages in their schools. But the most shocking development was happening among the elder species themselves. Faced with humanity's overwhelming demonstration of power and organization, they began serious discussions about whether survival required becoming human client states. On the Catherian homeworld, Elder Vextar met with other senior counselors to discuss their options. The alternatives were stark: resist and be transformed by force, or negotiate and be transformed by choice. "We could maintain our autonomy," suggested Counselor Thexan. "Accept human leadership while keeping our own culture." "For how long?" Vextar asked sadly. "Look at what's happening to the Zalani worlds. Their young people are already preferring human education over their traditional learning. Their scientists are adopting human methods because they work better. Their artists are creating works that blend human and Zalani styles. The elder species were watching their greatest fear come true. Humanity wasn't destroying alien cultures. They were making them irrelevant. Human systems worked so much better that aliens voluntarily abandoned their old ways. The war that had begun with the attack on Kepler 442b was essentially over within 6 months. Not because humanity had destroyed their enemies, but because their enemies no longer existed as independent entities. The Zilani Confederation had become the Human-Zilani Alliance. The Helix Empire was now the Helix Human Republic. Even species that hadn't participated in the original attack were requesting to join humanity's growing sphere of influence. Emperor Wan Ho-che, newly elected leader of the expanding Terran Republic, received reports from across the galaxy. Former enemy worlds were reporting increased prosperity, reduced crime, and higher education levels. Alien species were contributing their unique knowledge and abilities to human projects, creating innovations that neither could have achieved alone. 6 months after the war began, it was over. The galaxy had been transformed so completely that most beings could barely remember what the old order had been like. Standing in the rebuilt assembly hall that now orbited Earth, Emperor Wan Ho-che looked out at the new Galactic Council with satisfaction. The hall itself told the story of how everything had changed. Where once the Great Dome had shown stars from across the galaxy, it now displayed the integrated territory of the Terran Galactic Republic. Green lights marked human worlds, blue lights showed allied colonies, and golden lights indicated the elder species who had chosen to join willingly. There were no red lights left, no hostile territories, no enemy fleets, no independent species that refused to acknowledge human leadership. The transformation was complete. Representatives of the here Terran Galactic Republic, Emperor Wan Ho began his address. We gathered today to mark the 6th month of galactic peace, for the first time in recorded history. Every inhabited world in our galaxy shares the same basic values of cooperation, progress, and mutual benefit. Half the delegates in the assembly were human, but the other half represented dozens of alien species. The difference was that these aliens now considered themselves citizens of the Human Republic rather than subjects of conquered territories. They wore modified human uniforms, spoke human languages alongside their native tongues, and had adopted human organizational methods in their governments. Elder Counselor Vextar sat in the section reserved for advisory council members. His species, along with the other elder races, had negotiated a unique status within the Human Republic. They maintained their ancient territories and cultural practices, but served as consultants and historians for humanity's expanding government. Your Majesty, Vextar said when called upon to speak, on behalf of the Elder Advisory Council, I present our formal treaties of alliance with the Terran Republic. The ceremony was symbolic. The real negotiations had been completed months ago. But symbols mattered in galactic politics, and humanity understood the importance of making their former enemies feel respected and valued, rather than simply defeated. Vex quote, Tar approached the podium with dignity, carrying documents that represented thousands of years of galactic history. His species had gone from fearing humanity to serving as their advisors, and the transition had been surprisingly smooth. We, the elder species, acknowledge the Terran Galactic Republic as the legitimate government of this galaxy, he announced, formally. We pledge our knowledge, our experience, and our loyalty to the human vision of galactic civilization. The applause that followed was genuine rather than forced. The elder species had discovered that human leadership was not the disaster they had feared, but actually an improvement over the chaos of independent species fighting over resources and territory. On the former Zilani homeworld, now called New Harmony, children who had been born during the war were starting school. In classrooms that blended human and Zilani architecture, young aliens learned mathematics, science, and history alongside human children. Teacher Ji-Yun Song watched her mixed class of human and alien students work together on a project about galactic history. The Zilani children spoke perfect Korean alongside their native language, while the human children had learned basic Zilani phrases. More importantly, they thought of themselves as citizens of the same republic rather than members of different species. Miss Song asked a young Zilani student, why did our parents fight against the humans before the war? Ji-Yeon smiled. This question came up often, and she had learned to answer it carefully. They were afraid of change. They thought humans wanted to destroy Zilani culture, but humans actually wanted to improve it. She gestured to the classroom, around them, where Zilani artistic traditions decorated walls alongside human historical displays. Your culture wasn't destroyed. It became part of something larger and better. The student nodded, satisfied. To these children, the idea of species fighting each other seemed as ancient and barbaric as humans fighting over different skin colors had once seemed to their grandparents, on the Catherian research station Wisdom's Edge. Alien and human scientists worked side by side on projects that would have been impossible for either species alone. Dr. Sumin An, a human historian, was collaborating with Catherian archaeologists to uncover the true history of galactic civilization. Look, at this. Her colleague Veltar showed her an ancient tablet. This appears to be a record of humanity's first contact with spacefaring species, but it's written from our perspective rather than yours. Dr. Suman studied the alien text with interest. Her translation implants allowed her to read Catherian script as easily as Korean, another gift of human technology that had revolutionized interspecies communication. The young species shows unusual promise, she read aloud. Their questions reveal strategic thinking beyond their apparent development level, recommend continued observation and limited contact. Even then, your ancestors knew humans were different, Veltar noted. They just didn't understand how different. The research they were conducting would eventually become the definitive history of galactic civilization, written jointly by human and alien scholars. It would show how the fear of human expansion had actually prevented the galaxy from achieving its full potential for thousands of years. Commander Da-Un Kim stood on the observation deck of the exploration vessel New Horizon as it approached the edge of the galaxy. Behind her, the Milky Way stretched across space like a jeweled spiral, every light now representing a world under human influence or protection. Commander, reported her navigation officer, we have clear sensor readings on the Andromeda galaxy. Initial surveys show over 1 trillion stars with potential for habitable worlds. Dayun nodded with satisfaction. The Terran Republic had grown, beyond anyone's imagination in just 6 months, but humanity's appetite for expansion was far from satisfied. Earth was already preparing colony fleets that would carry millions of volunteers to establish the first human settlements in Andromeda. Begin detailed mapping protocols, she ordered. I want to know everything about our new territory before the main fleets arrive. Her crew included representatives from 12 different species, all working together to prepare for humanity's next phase of expansion. The former enemies who had once tried to contain human growth were now helping to plan the colonization of an entire galaxy. On New Busan, Captain Hyun-Sik Park walked through the memorial garden dedicated to the miners who had died defending Kepler 442b. The attack that had started the war seemed like ancient history now, but the memorial ensured that the lesson would never be forgotten. The central monument bore the inscription that had become humanity's galactic motto. We did not seek this war, but we will finish it. Below that, in smaller text written in 12 alien languages, the elders were right to fear us. They were wrong to think fear would be enough. Visitors from across the galaxy came to see the memorial, trying to understand how a simple mining colony had become the catalyst for the transformation of galactic civilization. Most left with a better appreciation for human determination and the consequences of underestimating seemingly peaceful opponents. Captain Park called his former communications officer Lieutenant So-Young Kim, now promoted to Commander of Interspecies Communications. We're receiving the first reports from the Andromeda Advanced Scouts. Hyun-Sik followed her to the communications center, where messages from the edge of known space were being decoded and analyzed. The reports painted a picture of a galaxy ripe for human expansion with numerous species that could benefit from exposure to human organizational methods. Any signs of organized resistance? He asked. Nothing significant, So-Young replied. Some of the species appear to have advanced technology, but there's no evidence of galaxy-spanning civilizations like we had here. It should be a much smoother expansion than what we experienced in the Milky Way. In his private office overlooking New Busan's capital, Dr. Sumin An was interviewing elderly aliens who remembered the galaxy before human dominance. Their stories would become part of the historical record, preserving the memory of what had been lost and gained during the Transformation. What do you miss most about the old galaxy? She asked a retired Zilani military officer who had fought in the original war. The old alien considered the question carefully. I miss the certainty, he finally said. We knew who our enemies were, who our allies were, and what our place in the galaxy was supposed to be. And what do you appreciate about the new order? Everything else, he admitted with a laugh. My children have opportunities I never dreamed possible. My grandchildren will grow up in a galaxy where species work together instead of fighting over scraps. The uncertainty was a small price to pay for progress. This was the story Dr. Sumin heard again and again. Former enemies who admitted that human rule was better than the chaos that had come before. Older aliens who had initially resisted integration, but now couldn't imagine returning to the old ways. The final entry in her historical record would note that the transformation of the galaxy had been so complete that most beings couldn't remember why they had ever opposed it. Human civilization had not conquered the galaxy so much as it had improved it beyond recognition. The Great Hall on Nexus Prime had seen many meetings over the years. Today it held representatives from 12 different alien species. The massive dome stretched high above them, showing stars from across the galaxy. Elder Counselor Vex-Tar stood at the center podium, his ancient form casting long shadows. Vex-Tar had lived for 3,000 years. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had watched species discover space travel, build great fleets, and then disappear into history. But today he felt more worried than he had in centuries. My fellow council members, Vex-Tar began, his voice carrying across the hall. We gather today to discuss a matter of great importance. The younger species wish to take action against the humans. A wave of murmurs swept through the assembly. Commander Wraith of the Zilani Confederation stood up from his seat. He was young by galactic standards, only 200 years old. His blue skin showed the confidence of someone who had never lost a major battle. Elder Vex-Tar, with respect, your fears are outdated, Wraith said. The humans control only 43 star systems. We control 800. Their ships are slow and their weapons are basic. They pose no real threat to anyone. Other young commanders nodded in agreement. The Helix Empire's representative waved his forearms dismissively. The humans haven't even discovered proper shield technology. They still use metal armor on their ships. Vex-Tar felt a chill run through his old bones. You do not understand. There is a reason we elders have one rule about humans. Never challenge them directly. This rule has kept the galaxy safe for 3 millennia. Safe from what? Asked Commander Yilla of the Crimson Fleet. Their tiny fleet? Their backward colonies? Vex-Tar activated a holographic display. Ancient texts appeared in the air, written in languages that few still remembered. These are the oldest records in our archives. They tell of the first time our ancestors encountered humans. The young commanders looked at the floating words with little interest. Commander Wraith crossed his arms. Ancient history, Elder. The galaxy has changed, we have advanced. If the humans were ever dangerous, they would have shown it by now. On the other side of the galaxy, Captain Hyun-Sik Park stood on the bridge of his ship, the Busan's Pride. Through the viewports, he could see the human colony world of New Busan spinning slowly below them. The planet looked peaceful, with its blue oceans and green continents. Cities dotted the surface like scattered jewels. Captain, called Lieutenant So-Young Kim from her station. I'm picking up some strange signals. Hyun-Sik walked over to her. Console. So-Young was one of the best communication officers in the Terran Defense Force. If she said something was strange, he paid attention. What kind of signals? He asked. So-Young frowned at her screens. Encrypted transmissions between several alien fleets. They're trying to hide it, but our new listening posts caught fragments. It sounds like they're forming some kind of alliance. Hyun-Sik felt his stomach tighten. For months there had been rumors of alien species getting nervous about human expansion. Most humans didn't take it seriously. Humans had always been careful to avoid conflicts with other species. Can you decode any of it? I'm trying, sir. But Captain, some of these transmission patterns, they're moving toward our border systems. In the engineering section of New Busan's orbital station, Jinwoo Lee was working on his latest project. The communication array he was building looked like a metal flower, with dozens of dish-shaped petals pointing in different directions. If his calculations were correct, it would allow instant communication across hundreds of light-years. Jin-Woo wiped sweat from his forehead and stepped back to admire his work. He had been a civilian engineer for 15 years, but lately, the military had been asking for his help more often. They wanted better communication systems, stronger ship hulls, and more efficient engines. Jin-Woo called his assistant, Miran. "The test is ready." Jin-Woo nodded and activated the array. The metal petals began to glow with soft blue light. Numbers flashed across his computer screen as the system came online. "It's working," he breathed. "We can now talk to Earth in real time." What Jin-Woo didn't know was that his communication array was part of a much larger network. Across human space, hundreds of similar devices were being built and installed. The Terran Defense Force had been preparing for something, and they wanted to make sure every human world could stay in contact. Back on Nexus Prime, the council meeting was getting heated. Commander Wraith had presented his evidence against the humans. He showed star maps highlighting human colonies near strategic trade routes. He displayed photos of human ships that looked primitive compared to modern alien vessels. "Look at their technology," Wraith said, pointing to an image of a human destroyer. "No energy shields, no plasma weapons. They still use kinetic projectiles like an ancient species." The younger species representatives cheered and applauded. They saw weakness, where the elders saw careful restraint. Elder Vextar tried one more time. "Commander Wraith, you see only what the humans want you to see. My species learned long ago that humans are masters of deception. They show weakness to hide strength." "Then where is this hidden strength?" Wraith challenged. "Show us these terrible human weapons. Show us their mighty fleets." Vextar's shoulders sagged. He knew he could not prove what he felt in his bones. The ancient records spoke of human cunning and brutality, but they were thousands of years old. The young species would never believe such old warnings. On Earth, in the capital city of Geneva, Ambassador Eunji Choi was reading the latest intelligence reports. Her office overlooked the lake, but she wasn't enjoying the view today. The reports painted a clear picture. Several alien species were forming a military alliance against humanity. Yoon-G had spent her career trying to keep peace between humans and aliens. She had negotiated trade agreements, resolved border disputes, and built friendships across the galaxy. Now it seemed like all that work might come to nothing. Her assistant knocked on the door. "Ambassador, there's an urgent message from the Galactic Council." Yunji opened the message and felt her heart sink. It was an official demand from the Zalani Confederation, supported by 3 other species. They wanted humans to withdraw from several border systems immediately. They claimed humans were a threat to galactic peace. The message gave humans 7 days to comply. Yoon-G stared at the words on her screen. 7 days to abandon colonies where millions of humans lived. 7 days to give up systems that had been human territory for decades. 7 days to submit to the demands of species that had never liked humanity's growing influence. She picked up her secure communicator and dialed a number she had hoped never to use. "This is Ambassador Choi. Please connect me to the Defense Council. Tell them it's Code 7. Back on Nexus Prime, the final vote was being taken. Elder Vextar watched sadly as the younger species voted to support the ultimatum to humanity. The elders abstained, but their silence was seen as weakness, rather than wisdom. Commander Wraith stood triumphant as the results were announced. "The Galactic Council has spoken. Humanity has 7 days to comply with our demands. If they refuse, we will enforce them." As the council members filed out of the Great Hall, Elder Vextar remained behind. He stared up at the dome showing the stars of the galaxy. Somewhere out there, humans were receiving the ultimatum. Somewhere out there, they were making decisions that would change everything. "You have no idea what you've done," he whispered to the empty hall. In his long life, Vextar had seen many species make the mistake of challenging humans. None of those species existed anymore, not because humans had destroyed them, but because humans had changed them so completely that they became something else entirely. The 7-day countdown had begun. Soon the galaxy would remember why the elders feared humanity. Soon everyone would understand why the first rule of galactic politics was simple: never challenge the humans. But it was too late for wisdom now. The younger species had made their choice, and soon they would face the consequences of ignoring 3,000 years of hard-learned lessons. The war that would reshape the galaxy was about to begin.